Yes, that is Martin PK, Beautiful Jesus. What an incredible song. What an incredible artist. The time now is 3 minutes past 10 a.m. on a very beautiful Monday morning. Give us a shout on our Facebook. You can drop a comment. We are on live Facebook. And you can also send us a WhatsApp on our number 069 402 1131. For those who are new to this is the Art of Building a Healthy Marriage show by Pastor Khaya Sodladla. What an incredible honor for us and for all the married people out there, and even those who are preparing to get married, to get into this amazing institution, that God has created. It's not to be endured, but to be enjoyed. And this is an incredible show because, as Pastor Khaya usually says it, there's nothing wrong with the marriage. Oftentimes, there's something wrong with the tools that are used to fix and, make it work. So before introducing the show, let me introduce the Pastor Khaya. So Pastor Khaya Sodladla is a designated marriage officer, and he, together with his wife Zimkita Sodladla, are pastors to His Grace Tabernacle in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. They are both passionate about ministering to singles and married couples. Over the years, through the local radio programs directed at married couples, they used to host in small South African frontier town of Aliwal North, Christian counseling programs, and through their local church couples ministry, they have impacted and revived many ailing marriages. They are blessed with 3 wonderful children, Gift, Lidwala and Ntando, and they make Port Elizabeth, South Africa, their home. And I can tell you that he is the author of this fantastic book. If you haven't got a copy, please do get for yourself. Man, I read it every time. It's called The Art of Building a Healthy Marriage. And you can always get it by contacting us on our number 069 402 1131. You can also contact him on the Facebook platform, The Art of Building a Healthy Marriage, and you can order your book. He also is the author of the Marriage Reset Button. Wow, reset. Okay, we have that. We need that reset button. Absolutely. We really need, because sometimes we lose it. We lose track. We need to press that reset button. So without further ado, welcome, Pastor Khaya. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Brother John. It's also good to be here.
Awesome, awesome. And for our new listeners, for those tuning in now, we have been dealing with the past 2-3 weeks now, we've been dealing with confrontation, communication in marriage, and we know that wherever 2 or more people are involved, communication is inevitable. In fact, to achieve any goal in life, communication is inevitable. So you need to know how to communicate. And sometimes we go through the rough, and things don't work perfectly all the time, and you need to talk. You need to find each other. I like that that word that you said, finding each other again, and through that you need to know how to address issues, and that is confrontation. When somebody you meet somebody and somebody has done something, maybe it's offended you, they didn't know, and we all know that we have different love languages and different ways of communication. We are so different. So in a marriage setup, is 2 very different individuals coming together, and so that's a very fertile ground for difficulties and and stuff like that. So there's always gonna be issues, but you need to know how to confront. Remember, he's the person that you loved, and you love, and you said your vows to. Is not turned, or she's not turned all of a sudden to be an enemy that you just like vent out. So there is a way to confront, and we've been dealing with this in the past few the past few days, the past few weeks, and we're gonna continue with it now. Today we are specifically gonna be talking about toxic confrontation. We've been dealing with how to do it well, and we're gonna go on now with how not to do it. So, Pastor, please take us through it.
Brother John, thank you so much. Let me take this time to greet the listeners and those viewing on Facebook Live. It's always a joy and a privilege to be here. In the last few weeks, we started with an ever important topic of communication in marriage. It's very crucial. You know, we are living in a generation, you know, I normally say, when God said, and the two shall become one, it's easier said than done.
The Lord knew when he was saying.
Yeah, no, he knew he was saying, but the actual, the actual processes of getting the two to become one, it's a mission.
Yeah.
I have a picture in my mind of, this weekend I was all by myself with the children. My wife was out of town in a women's conference in Pretoria, having a great time there. and for me, I had to remain home and hold the fort.
Okay.
Now it reminds me, before I got married, I was very good with cooking. But when I got married, I got spoiled.
Okay.
Praise the Lord, I have a daughter who is, starting to learn to help. But by and large, I've got to do the cooking myself. One of the things that for me, as I was cooking, that I remembered, it's amazing. When you take, those of you who knows a mashed potato, and you know how to cook it, you take a mashed potato that is, they are separate. Maybe you've got 3 or 4, potatoes.
Yes.
And then you've got to make them one, because when you mash them, you make them one. So the first thing you do, you peel them and boil them. You boil them until they are soft enough. And then the next thing you do, you've got to put them under a mesh. You've got to mesh them, mix them until you can separate the one from the other. They become one thing. Now, when I think about marriage and being made one, there's a meshing that takes place. Now, by nature, people, we are very diverse. We are created differently. We're wired up differently. I will never overemphasize this enough. We are, and one of the things that is a challenge with those who get married is when they get married, because when you are dating and preparing to get married, it's easy for you to set the pace and to set the rhythm so that you are easily adaptable to this person. But there's a difference between adapting to the person and becoming one with the person.
Yo, that is deep, really. That is deep.
Those who are not married, they learn how to adapt. They learn how to, do what they expect that you want at that particular time. But you have got to put effort to keep on doing that.
Sure.
But the richest form is when you are yourself in being what they are.
Sure.
You don't have to put an effort. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to act. You are just flowing in being you. But you have got to be in you, in oneness with the one you are married to.
Sure.
So we're not talking about rhythm here. We're not talking about, we're not talking about rhythm. We're not talking about being synchronized. You're talking about being one, not in synchronity.
Wow.
Now, one of the ways that the best tool that is very crucial, because for you to find each other and become one, you have got to be very good in communication and keep communicating.
Absolutely.
So that you can keep on, because that communication, it keeps on putting you on the same path. It keeps on making sure that you are in the same, you're meshed together. You're one. You agree. If you talk about finances, if you talk about bedroom issues, if you talk about family issues, if you've got to be one. You've got to show one face. But the way to do that is communication. Sometimes you will not agree. It's natural and it's normal and it's very healthy. You can't be agreeing on everything, because if you see things differently, that means you've got a wider picture. Now, communication enables you to take advantage of that wider picture. But if you don't communicate, that wider picture can work against you.
Sure.
But if you can see the wider picture and able, I used to love binoculars. I still do. I just don't have the money to buy them now. But I used to love them. I don't have any set now. But binoculars, when you set them, you have got to learn how to balance them, because if you don't balance them enough, you can have a big pictures that conflict each other. Or you can have a picture that is not very clear because you have not learned to synchronize the picture and make it one. So that when you see your eyes, even though they are two, but you can see one picture on the other side.
Absolutely.
Now, in marriage, communication does that. Wow. It synchronizes you, it makes you one, it makes you to be together. But now, there are some things that we do in marriage. So, for you to master communication or confrontation, you have got to master the techniques.
Okay.
There's a technique, human beings by nature, because we are diverse, whenever there are human beings, there will always be confrontation. There's a scripture in the Bible, it's a bit, I didn't look at it before I came here. Okay. It says, where there are multitudes of cattle, then there will be, I'll paraphrase it.
Yes, please.
Then there will be a countdown. There will be countdown.
Sure.
If you have cattle, if you have got a lot of cattle, you have got to have, if you want to have this cattle, be ready to deal with a countdown. So also when there are human beings, I don't want to say this, human done.
There's going to be issues.
There's going to be issues. Because people are not generally, they don't always agree.
Absolutely.
That is why governments, that is why companies, that is why, different places, they invest some money in conflict resolution processes. Because you need them so that you can keep managing these people.
Pastor, I think so far you have touched and like you've probably just passed through them, and I know it's because we have, but I think I'm just going to double click on them. The first one you said, especially for us the unmarried yet, being one is not adapting to each other.
Yes,
it's something different, because the perspective that we have is like adjusting, compromising, and mashing. So there's a whole different level of being one. And then another thing that you said right now, and I like the imagery that you use about binoculars, because I also use the binoculars, and when the two eyes see as one, there's a fine tuning, as you said.
Yes,
that is a very good imagery that you use about communication. Absolutely.
Thank you. You know what? You are tempting me because I wanted to pass on the first one. But allow me maybe to, because, I would rather we deal with some issues we know that somebody has been helped. Just doing it just for the sake of doing it. So allow me to zoom back a bit on the adaptation versus, oneness. The best acting people in the world are those who are still trying to impress each other.
Sure.
And those are mostly those who are dating. They are selling themselves. They are giving each other what they know the other is expecting. They put on the best behavior. They put on the, even if when they are alone, I grew up with cousin sisters that were older than me. I knew how rough they were at home. But when their boyfriends were around, wow, their change would almost not recognize them. You know that this one, when she laughs at home, some of them might be listening to me, but you know that when this one laughs at home, she laughs as if she's coming down a mountain. But when now she's laughing next to this boyfriend, even the way that it changes. Why? Because they are trying to adapt. They are trying to impress. They are trying to give them what they expect. So it's acting.
Sure.
The challenge with that is you cannot act for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
That is what is killing many marriages. Because if you act and for what you are not, that's false advertisement. So if this person marries this one who has been acting all along, when they get inside, you know, you cannot act forever. Two things will happen. You will act, but acting tires.
It does.
Not being yourself tires, because you're going to a job every day. You're an actor. It's just that you don't get paid any money for it. So many young people, what I'm trying to say is there's an adapting. There is meeting an expectation, which can be very tiring and demanding. But when you are married, that's when now you've got to be one. You've got to be yourself, but you've got to be yourself in synchronity with the one you're married to. And to reach that process where you are not acting, but still, you're still, meeting meeting the expectation, not the best word, but you're still in synchronity with the one that you're married to. You don't have to work hard. It happens naturally. You don't have to work. There's a time that, when me and my wife, there are times that I know what she thinks.
Wow.
We can sit down and we don't say anything, but we understand each other. We get each other. Because I already know what my wife would want. I already know, and she knows what I'm wanting.
Wow.
Because we have reached a level and a stage. And what I do, and I know it's going to please her. I'm not doing it to impress her. I'm doing it because it's in me.
Wow.
It's what I'm saying.
That's a different
I'm doing it because it's in me. It's me. It's me. And I know that when I do it, it's going to make her happy. But I'm not trying to impress her. But I'm doing what I know. This is what So you've got to reach that level. So that's where we normally struggle. That transition. And you find that after 3 years, somebody is tired of acting. They say, no, I'm tired of this thing. I can't do this anymore. It is because you have not been yourself all along. The secret is when you get married, processes to mesh you have got to take place. Processes to bring you and make you one. And normally they say it takes about 5 years. The first year is the most intense. Now, if you go through the first year, that's where you find many couples fight. The first 3 years are the most challenging.
Wow.
If you go through the first 3 years, you have passed the first phase of your meshing. That's where many fights are. That's where many insecurities are. That's where, power struggles are. That's where, many other challenges comes in. On the 3rd year, at least it subsides a bit. Then the next 2 years is normally now to learn how to walk in sync with each other. Once you pass the 5 years, it's maintenance.
Wow.
So you've got to maintain it through the processes of communication. So for you to do that, you need to learn the right technique.
Absolutely.
Confrontation is the best thing that can happen to a couple. One of the things that I've learned, I do a lot of counseling to many couples who have been, most of the time, people will call a marriage counselor when their marriage is already on the ditch. When they feel that they are cornered, there's not, especially with us. When they are cornered and they feel that there's nothing else that can be done now. And then they call the marriage counselor as the last hope to you find that most of the time we do resuscitations. Just go there to resuscitate at the marriage.
Wow.
But one of the things I've learned is the couples that go through the Lord and bounce back, that couple is normally the most resilient couple in the future.
Wow.
There are few things that will be able to get through them, because that season of them being down and learn how to bounce back. So that means that confrontation season, no matter how intense it was, if they manage to rise above it and overcome it, it becomes their best blessing in the future.
Wow.
Because it helps them to withstand anything that is lesser than that challenge. So whenever you go through something as a couple, I always believe that when you manage to go through it, your level of maturity and oneness gets to another level. So what I'm trying to say is this thing of confrontation is the best thing if you learn what techniques you can use. But at the same time, it can become a nightmare if you don't know how to use the right techniques. Just like any good thing, you know, if you don't know how to use a car, if you know how to use your car, that car can be the best blessing. But if you don't know how to use it and you try to use it anyway, it can even cause death. So it's a blessing. Now, what are these techniques that we can warn each other against? What are these techniques that can sabotage and work against your marriage? Remember, confrontation is essential because you can't live with something that bothers you. Or you can't live with something you're not happy with. Or you're not supposed to live while you don't see eye to eye on anything in marriage, because you've got to agree. Well, you know, how can two walk together unless they agree? So confrontation is also the process of making people agree, you know, to be in agreement on certain issues. But you've got to learn how to bring about that process of agreement when you don't agree in a healthy manner. But today, let's look at the unhealthy ones. Okay. The first one I want to deal with today is defensiveness. There are 7 of them. But today I'm going to deal with defensiveness. Okay. A defensive person is when you confront, okay, I'm going to approach it on, you know, when a person is confronted and they are trying to cover up for something. In other words, their priority, you know, is to defend themselves or is to cover up for themselves, you know, to preserve maybe their dignity, to preserve maybe their trust, and to preserve, you know, themselves at the expense of the relationship, at the expense of dealing with the issue. Because when you deal with, it's like you are taking the issue and shield it. So that when your spouse wants to tackle the issue, instead of putting the issue on the open and say, this is the issue, let's together deal with it. But if you are defensive, you are taking the issue and cover it. So that at any cost, this issue can never be dealt with. As a result, that issue will always be there. Number 2 problem with that is if you are defensive and your spouse picks up that you are defensive on this issue, it frustrates them, number 1. Number 2, it brings in feelings of distrust. Because it says this person, if they can prioritize this thing, how do I trust them? Because now they are covering up. What are the other things that I've not been able to catch them on? If they cannot put this simple thing and put it here and we deal with it now, in future, how do I trust them? Number 3, what it does, it discourages the spouse from confrontation. And therefore, any marriage that runs away from confrontation will be a very unhealthy marriage, because you will have emotional dustbins, as we spoke about in the past. You know?
Absolutely.
So defensiveness is very problematic in marriage. Now, a person who is defensive or a person who is covering up for something can be very dangerous. Because they will go, and once you start being defensive, that tide can pull you by the time you realize you have gone too far. Because you keep on, because it's got layers. You keep on adding layer after layer, and you get drawn in. By the time you realize it's difficult to go back, because you were covering for this little thing, you put in another lie, and this lie put in another lie. By the time you realize now it's difficult to go back and say, well, I did not, but there are so many layers to go back again that have already led to this. Let's take, for example, David in the Bible.
Yes.
David is supposed to go normally every year. There were the fights of the kings. So kings were supposed to go out and fight. So the first blunder of David was not going to fight the battles of the Lord as a king when the kings were out fighting, but he decided to remain behind, which was not right for him to do that as a king because he was expected to go and fight.
Okay.
And then while he is lounging in his roof, a beautiful woman, because maybe she thought the king and the men were out in war, she is bathing and enjoying herself, and then David, with the corner, no, I like dramatizing, with the corner of his eye, sees this beautiful woman washing. And then maybe he was meditating and praying and worshiping because he was a worshiper. Maybe I was singing the song that says, there is none like him, you know. And then she says, there's none like him. If I could sing, I would sing that song. And then the eye saw, and then there's none like, there's none like, and then the one thing led to another. I slept with Bathsheba and then came back to his senses. When Bathsheba came back and said, say, I'm pregnant. And David came back to his senses. The first thing that came, this must not be found out by anybody. So the first layer of covering up for himself was to bring Uriah, who is at war, in the right place.
Sure.
Take him away from doing the right thing, and bring him in so that he can smear him, and with this thing of impregnating his wife.
Sure.
Uriah comes back, but Uriah comes back but refuses to go to the... That was a problem for him. He said, I can't go and sleep with my wife while the men are out there fighting. And David realized, there's a problem. My plan is not working. But I don't care what he says. Now, I've already started with this. I must make sure this guy sleeps with his wife. And then the next thing David did, he brought him in, caused him to get drunk. And this man is so drunk because he thought, well, but if he's very drunk, he'll be able to go in and sleep with it. That's covering up. That's being defensive. It's sort of dealing with the issue, sort of putting the issue on the table. It does that. And then Uriah comes and says, I cannot go to and sleep with my wife. And the other men are out there fighting blood. Now, David realizes, this plan does not work away. What do I do? What do I do? And then David, the man after God's own heart, resorted to the unthinkable. He sent Uriah back, giving him a letter, not knowing that the letter that the king he trusted had written there, the sentence for his own death. So David killed the man to cover up. That's how dangerous covering up is. So if you are married and you start walking that route of being defensive, you are opening up a can of worms. The problem with this is once you have found out that you were covering up or you were not truthful, you have violated the principles of trust. You have violated, any other fruitful confrontation in the future. Because you have proven or you have shown that you did not enter this front confrontation truthfully or you don't take it seriously. So David kills Uriah because Uriah, he was trying to cover up so that he can say to people, well, because Uriah would have told people that I did not sleep with my wife. But now that his dad is not there to say, no, I don't know this child.
Sure.
So that's the dangers of being defensive. Now, let me tell you another story. Another story is as a young boy, I was living with my aunt. And I used to, sleep in one bed with one of my older sisters.
Okay. All right.
I think I was about 7 years old. I remember that 7 or less, or or even younger, or 6 years. I remember this vividly. But I remember that, in those days, the bedwetting issue. I was done with bedwetting, but I don't know. There were those days that I don't know where they came from, where an accident would happen. and where an accident would happen. So I would wet the bed. My cousin's sister was a deep sleeper. So what I would do is I would wake up and remember, if I'm found out that I've wet the bed, I'll be in trouble the following day.
Sure.
And I would say, what do I do to save my hide? Then I would wake up, change the pajamas that I was wearing, put them underneath, right there on the bottom of the washing basket, put on new ones, and I would go to sleep. And then I would push my poor cousin sister to the workplace. And then in the morning when they wake up and they see the word, and I wake up and then I'm the one who's the most surprised. And I acted as a victim of the them. And because I was a child, I could not cover my tracks properly. And I would be found out that maybe when they do the wash, I said, no, man, these pajamas were put here wet. And then I'll be found out, I'll still be in trouble. But it shows you when somebody wants to cover up, they are willing to even, they're even to even hurt the ones they love, as long as it helps them to cover up their issue. So being defensive is not healthy. Being defensive causes you to even go to an extent of hurting the one that you love for the sake of covering up. And therefore, it is never ever recommended.
Absolutely.
It is never recommended for any technique of confrontation. I think, Brother John, that is all that I have for today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I mean, you said one important thing, I probably didn't notice about defensiveness, and being defensive, like it's one layer after another, and it could be one layer too late.
Yes.
And you lose a loved one. You lose a trust completely. I mean, this is a power or the destructiveness of being defensive, and we want to tell our listeners and our viewers out there, I know there's that temptation.
Yes.
There's this one thing I don't want to, want to be confronted on. I don't want to bring to the open. I like the book of Proverbs when it says, to a sin that is brought out, to the open can be healed and forgiven, but a sin that is hidden in the secret, it festers.
Exactly. That's a right picture.
It rots and
that's
becomes
the right
toxic.
picture.
Exactly. And absolutely. If this thing, you exchange vows, and this is the person that you love most, and you said, to death do you part. This is somebody that you have, sworn an oath before men and before God, and there's no secrecy between the two of you.
Yes.
So when that platform of openness is brought, I think, in love, I know sometimes it could be really difficult, but Pastor, what do you recommend, just in wrapping up and ending the session?
Yes.
What do you recommend? Because it could be an issue that is very difficult.
Brother John, what I recommend, it goes back to the scripture. And the two were both naked and not ashamed. Planning to communicate and being honest and transparent is a process. Learning to trust each other is a process. Maybe when we come back next week, we might need to start there.
Absolutely.
We might need to start there because you grow into it. You don't do it overnight.
Absolutely.
That thing, if for example, you are with your wife or with your husband, and when they strip naked in front of you, maybe to change, and you start maybe embarrassing them with some body parts in their body. Obviously, in future, they will not be comfortable to get naked in front of you. If you can cause your spouse to be comfortable and not be judgmental and not be you know your response when they open up to you, they know that they will not get judged. They know that they will not get punished, but instead you will learn to deal with the issue. Make them comfortable to open up, even if that problem is a problem that they cause. But if they know that healthily you're going to deal with it, it's going to make it easier for them to open up instead of covering up, because they fear the repercussions of them opening up.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I think, you know, from the other, you know, couple, from, you know, like just taking the, you know, the fact that your partner has taken a few steps to open up. I mean, it's you should just respect and love and cherish them so much. So we want to encourage you, listeners, you know, as we close, you know, those, especially those moments and those things that you feel, oh goodness, I don't think how I'll be able to open up to my spouse on this issue. Go ahead. You know, we want to encourage you to do it, and to do it, you know, with love. You go ahead, because you never know that could lead to a more bonding, a deeper intimacy
and trust.
Yeah, deeper trust.
And because once they know that you can open up to them with something that they know is uncomfortable, then for them it brings up trust that says, you know, that means I can trust this person.
Absolutely.
Once they know that for you to say this, it took a lot. And you could have hidden it, you could have covered it up. But if you're open and ask for forgiveness and deal with it, it enriches your marriage even more.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. Ladies and gents, that's the end for today's session. Just remember that last parting word. That one thing, opening up, could enrich your relationship beyond imagination, beyond your wildest imagination. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. We're going to listen to Beautiful by Martin PK. Please remember to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. on the Art of Building a Healthy Marriage show by Pastor Khaya Sodladla. Until next time, adios. Bye-bye.